welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs. Here are your hosts, Julie Fudge Smith and Colleen Pelar.
Hi, welcome to Your Family Dog. I'm Colleen Pelar, and Julie Fudge Smith and I got an email that we're awfully excited about that we wanted to share with you because, of course, we love to get email. So Ginger wrote to us and she said, I'm taking my young golden retriever Murphy on our first road trip together with a beach destination. I was hoping you could give us some practices on keeping dogs comfortable, entertained, and above all, safe when traveling. And because Julie and I have thoughts and opinions on everything, we not only thought this was a podcast, we think it's two. So our first one is today. Today we're talking about the road trip piece, and then our next episode is going to be about introducing your dog to a new environment like the beach. So for today, Julie, I'm getting ready to get in the car with my dog and go on a road trip. What should I be thinking about?
Well, first of all, I think you need to be thinking about how is the dog going to travel safely in the car. Are you going to put it in a crate? Are you going to put it in a seat belt? How are you going to secure your dog for a long road trip? Most people don't have the capacity to put, especially if they have a large dog like a golden retriever, don't necessarily have the room for a crate that's large enough for a golden retriever. Not unless you have a full-size van of sorts, and with backup signals and all that stuff. But what I do recommend is there are a lot of good safety harnesses out there for dogs that are designed to be clipped into a seat belt. And that would be one thing to think about, because if you're going to be doing traveling, and it's probably something you should do every day with your dog, is whenever he gets in the car, put him in his seat belt. But especially, I think, on a long road trip, it's important to have your dog traveling safely in the car. And I know that with my dog's safety harnesses, they can sit up, stand on the seat, I think, and lay down. So it's not like they are confined to a straitjacket in the back seat of the car, So that would be the first thing I would talk about. And then the second thing I would think about is, does my dog settle down in the car? Or do I need to help my dog find the car to be a wonderful thing to do? So there's lots of things you can do. There are antlers that your dog can chew on, and those are relatively non-messy, which is always nice in the car.
Non-messy is good. Are they non-smelly?
Yes.
Another nice thing in the car, because we're in a closed space.
Well, my favorite place to get antlers is MichiganArtAntlers.com, and we will put that on the website. And they have really great antlers that don't chip, which is my priority. And you can get them either closed or split so that the marrow is exposed in the split ones. And I don't know which kind your dog's going to like, but if you call them, I'm sure they'll help you to accommodate you with perhaps one or two of the others. So think about things that are long-lasting chews for him in the car. This is not really the place I think I'm giving my dog a marrow bone. For one, they can smell. Two, they can be very messy. And three, if they get dropped under the seat and forgotten, you're going to have a really stinky mess in your car. So those are a couple of things. I think Kongs are another thing. We've talked lots and lots about how we really like Kongs, and those would be a good thing. And if you have a small cooler, you can even take frozen Kongs and put those in the cooler. They may unthaw a little bit, but then they're going to be much more long-lasting than just kibble and peanut butter. How about you, Colleen?
Right. A cooler can be a really helpful thing because in addition to your Kongs or whatever in the cooler, you could put some water in there so that when you get to a rest stop, the water is not room temperature or worse, hot, but actually cool and refreshing for your dog, or maybe some ice cubes or anything that the dog might want to explore with. And the concept of water brings up an additional point. Some dogs, not all dogs, but some dogs have very sensitive digestive systems. And if your dog is one of those, it's often a good idea to take 2-gallon jugs of water from home, so that we're not changing the water rapidly. And then each time you get to a rest stop, fill your dog's water bowl with just a little bit of water from each jug and then top it off with the water from that rest stop, so that we're adding a few ounces at a time and diluting home water with travel water as we go along, so that your dog isn't having a big shift when we get to wherever your destination is and suddenly it's very different water. That's not a really common issue for dogs, but for the dogs it's an issue for. It's
a huge issue for the dogs that it's an issue for. That's true. Absolutely true. So I agree with you on that one. I like the ice cube one too, because I know that for my dogs, that's a great way to cool them down quickly. So that if you stop at a rest stop because they need to go to the bathroom, and you take them out and it's a hot day, not only some cold water, but give them a few ice cubes to chase around on the sidewalk can be really a fun little diversion for them. I know I discovered that quite by accident the other day. I gave them some ice cubes to see what happened, and Little Bear had a great time batting them all around the deck until he'd shoot off the deck, and then he'd look like, oh, my ice cube, it's gone away. But nonetheless, it was it was great fun. So I do think a small cooler dedicated just to the dogs is a great idea. Simply, then you're not going to make the mistake of perhaps reaching in and getting water that has doggy gunk in it. One of the other things... Doggy gunk. Because sometimes my dogs like to lick out of the pouring water bottle. Right? As I pour it into the dog bowl, they like the running water, so they're licking at the mouth of the water bottle. And honestly, not one I'm going to be drinking out of myself. So I just as soon have it dedicated to their cooler, and there's no mistaking that it's the doggy water.
Oh, the Smith dogs, they're so privileged. They have their own cooler.
Yeah, that is when Mom remembers it. But the other thing I'd like to do is talk about frequent breaks. One of the other things that Colleen has said to me in the past is that you need to take more breaks than you usually do. Frequent breaks are really important for when you're traveling with your dog. So my rule of thumb on that is, unless the dogs are really sound asleep in the back seat and doing really well, we break about every 1.5 to 2 hours. And that seems to really help them to settle in. What do you think about that, Colleen?
Well, since it was my advice, I think it's really good advice. Amazing how my biases work that way. But I do think we do need to take frequent breaks. And I know that's a huge frustration for many human members of the carpool there, because especially now in this age of GPS, but in our heads, we have an idea of how long a trip should take. And so our brains get set on the destination. And we're rolling along and like, okay, great, we're going to be there at noon. And then I say, I think we need to give the dog a break. Let's pull over and take a walk and give them some exercise and a potty break and have a little downtime. And the other humans are going, hurry up. But,
really? Can't you just pee and go?
Occasionally that's happened in my life. So when you're doing this, make sure that you're building in some of that time, because we need to be looking at not just giving the dog a chance to get out of the car to go to the bathroom and relieve themselves, but to actually move a little bit and build it into your planning, even though you know the destination is 4 hours away, that you're not going to be there in 4 hours, and you're not going to be there in 4.5. Make it at least 5, and then see what we got. So expectations.
Yes, you need to adjust your expectations. It's kind of like when I tell people when they begin loose lead walking, time and distance are not your friends.
Right.
Okay, and this is the same thing here. Time and distance are not your friend either. Because you need to remember, if you've got your dog, although they can, lay down and sit up and stuff, they can get stiff in the car too, especially your elderly dog. And, I think that if you are traveling with an older dog, or even with a puppy who's going to have to go to the bathroom a lot more often, you need those frequent breaks just to keep the dog comfortable and happy, especially our elderly friends.
Yeah. But your point, though, about if the dogs are sleeping, you don't always stop, I think that's a good point, too. Like, if you're trying to keep things moving and the dogs are really sleeping, then we're saying 1.5 hours, 2 hours, but they're asleep at the 2-hour point. Okay, feel free. Push on another half hour or whatever. We're not looking for really long periods, but I also think it's kind of like you don't wake the sleeping baby. Don't wake the sleeping dog. Just let him be.
Right. But when they wake up, they're probably needing some attention.
They are.
And so, keep in mind that when they do get up, you're going to have to stop pretty soon after that. One of the other things that we mentioned in our Helping Your Dog Learn to Love Riding in the Car, episode 10, for those of you who want to go back and listen to it. We did talk a little bit about car sickness, so we're not going to go into detail here. But if your dog is prone towards is it nauseous or nauseated? I can never use those two. Nauseated tummy.
I will admit that I know that because of Sheldon on Big Bang Theory, but once he explained it, I was like, yeah, that's true. I know that.
Well, would you like to share Sheldon's explanation for us?
I can't recall it now, but I do recall that somebody said nauseous, and he corrected them that it should in fact be nauseated, and now life is better because I understand it should be nauseated.
All right. So if your dog is nauseated in the car, you're going to want to go back to our episode 10. But beyond that, just real quick, one of the things that I think both Colleen and I will agree works really well, is ginger. Encapsulated ginger root, ginger snaps. I think there's a recipe for ginger snaps that we put on that episode. And
yeah, show notes of episode 10. Although I think encapsulated ginger root does work better, but ginger snaps are often a nice spot to start.
Right.
Just to see.
I agree. And then the other thing we talked about was a calming cap, which kind of looks like a dog's fly mask or a horse's fly mask, and prevents that kind of motion that may trigger the nausea. It's a noun, right? So I use nausea.
Yeah.
Okay. In the dog, so that he doesn't become nauseated. So
exactly.
All right. I think I got it. Thank you, Sheldon.
So assuming your dog is not nauseated, but just an ordinary dog, when you're stopping at a rest stop, we want to be thinking about things like how do we make the dog comfortable and happy, and parking in the shade is one big piece of that. If possible, we want to find a nice shady spot. But the other thing to keep in mind is we really don't want to leave our dogs unattended for even 1 second longer than we have to.
Correct.
So yes, I do recognize you need to run in and use the restroom. That's fair. But park in the shade, be as fast as you can, do everything you can to keep your car cool as possible during that time, and then make sure that you are, setting world records for getting back to your dog. So that means food-wise, you're doing drive-through, or you're grabbing something out of a vending machine, and you've already packed your cooler with healthy, nutritious snacks or whatever, but you're making a plan that doesn't include taking a half an hour where you might be in a restaurant.
Correct.
No,
that's not happening. And in fact, one of the things that I like to do is if I'm not a big drive-through kind of gal, but I have to say I am a sucker for French fries. But when I go, and the dogs are too, I share my French fries with the dogs. Okay, that's my big confession. Don't tell my holistic vet. Anyway, so we will go through a drive-through.
I buy chicken nuggets, especially for my dogs. I don't eat chicken nuggets, but my dogs do.
Yes, my dogs love chicken nuggets. Anyway, what we will do sometimes is go through the drive-through and then go to find a park and sit in the park and have our, so we get a break. But we sit outside and we have a snack, and we give the dogs their dinner and whatever. So that's kind of nice too, and it's a legitimate way. Or if there are two of you in the car, one of you can go to the park with the dogs, and the other one can go and get a carry-out pizza or whatever it is that you want to eat that evening that might not include French fries and chicken nuggets. So you have a few more options if you have a fellow human companion in the car. Adult. I was just about to say that. Thank you. Then if you're traveling alone.
Older kids are fine too, but yeah.
Do we want to put an age in here?
Either for the dog or for running.
That's right. Or can drive. So we're talking minimum 16, and even then they might not be, I don't know. I
would send my 12-year-old to go order food while I hung out with the dog.
Oh, in the car?
Probably, depending on the place. Like if I was saying like there's a restaurant in there and you're going to go get stuff, but you're going to have to stand in line. Yeah, I would let an older kid go do that. I wouldn't send my 7-year-old to go do that.
No.
I'll be out here with the dog. You go order something for us to eat. Good luck with that. Or you be out here with the big dogs, just totally managing it because you're 7 and you can do it. And I'll go inside. Nope, not going to do that either.
Okay. So the minimum age has to be at least 12, and that depends on the child.
I think at least 12. Yeah. That's kind of my breaking point, I guess.
That's right.
But
and we can always hope that there's not a police officer in the fast food.
Then you come back, you have no kids and no dog. You're like, wait a second.
That's right. So, yeah, we're going to leave this up to our listeners' discretion because I'm sure that they know better the responsibility of their spouse and or their children when it comes to either food or dogs. So just
this individual rest stop.
That's right. So just be responsible. That's all I'm going to say. Because apparently our guidelines are getting a little out of control here.
This is what happens.
It is what happens to us, unfortunately.
If I don't have a clear class, you never know where we're going to wind up.
Okay. So we've talked about keeping your dog safe in the car by having some sort of seat belt or safety harness. We've talked about having a good water supply, things for your dog to do in the car that are non-messy, what to do if your dog has car sickness, that you need to take frequent breaks every hour and a half to 2 hours unless the dogs are sleeping comfortably, but make sure that when they get up, you get them out soon. You're going to think about ways in which you can manage food for yourself that does not require your dog staying in the car for more than just a couple of minutes at a time. So that's drive-thrus, sending some other responsible person in to get the food. And if you do need to use the potty yourself, you are going to become just a world speed champion here at getting in and out of the restroom. So is there anything else that we want to add to this, Colleen, that you think would be important?
The one last thought that I just had is I know sometimes we're packing so much stuff in our car we don't want to add one more thing. But having some form of bedding that belongs to your dog can be really comforting to them in the car, but also when you get to your final destination.
Absolutely.
So it may not be your giant dog bed, but a bed or a pillow or a blanket or something that is from home and mine can be really helpful to a dog on a road trip.
Yes.
So I think that really wraps up the road trip stuff pretty well. So hopefully Ginger and Murphy are going to have a fantastic road trip on their way to the beach. And then in our next episode, we'll talk about how to help your dog adjust to a new environment when you're on vacation.
That's right. The one other thing that I wanted to add was that Ginger also said that she loves telling friends and dog lovers about our podcast. And we genuinely appreciate that. And if you also enjoy our podcast, we would appreciate it if you tell your friends and dog lovers about it, because we would love to have more people learn about great ways to manage your family dog. So next time, we're going to talk about how to manage new environments with dogs.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Colleen and Julie would love to hear them. Call 614-349-1661 or visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.
Have you visited our website lately? In addition to our previous episodes, we also have a list of resources that you and your dog may enjoy. Check it out at yourfamilydogpodcast.com.